Hello, it's Friday, June 5th. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of What's Happening in Myanmar, a show from the Frontier Myanmar podcast family. I am your host, Douglas Long, filling in this week for Nick Dunlop. This week in Myanmar, a massive blast occurred at an explosives depot in northern Shan state that killed dozens, while regime leader Aung Hlaing concluded his visit to India. Continued fighting in Chin state displaced thousands, and the country mourned the death of a prominent filmmaker and activist. On Sunday, a blast at an explosives depot in Kaung Tat village in northern Shan state's Namkham township killed at least 60 people and injured dozens more. The village near the Chinese border is controlled by the Taang National Liberation Army, which seized Namkham town in November 2023 during the early phase of Operation 1027. The TNLA released a statement saying that the accidental blast occurred at a depot operated by its economics department that was storing gelignite, widely used in mining but potentially unstable if not stored properly. Rescue workers told Shan-based Shui Pi Mie news agency that victims were still being pulled from the rubble days after the explosion. The bodies of 60 people had been recovered as of Thursday, with at least 6 children among the dead. People were crying, calling out for their parents. It felt as if the world had come to an end, a woman who suffered minor injuries and whose house was destroyed in the blast told BBC. It's not the first such incident in areas controlled by ethnic armed organizations. In April, at least 50 people were killed in an explosion at a gunpowder factory near the United Wa State Army's headquarters in northern Shan. Junta Chief Aung Hlaing made his first foreign visit since being appointed president in April, visiting India for high-level meetings. On Saturday, he met with the Indian External Affairs Minister in New Delhi. They discussed the junta's election, trade, defense, development projects, and security along the India-Myanmar border. On Monday, Aung Hlaing met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. "We in India are honored that he has chosen India for his first foreign visit as president," Modi posted on Facebook. The leaders discussed infrastructure projects like the Caladan Multimodal Transport Project and the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway, which have been delayed due to Myanmar's civil war. They also addressed rare earth minerals and security concerns. India's External Affairs Secretary, Vikram Misri, said Modi brought up ousted State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi to Aung Hlaing, although there was no public indication that Modi called for her release. Pro-democracy activists criticized Delhi for hosting the regime leader. The National Unity Government's foreign minister, Zin Ma Aung, sent a letter to the Indian External Affairs Minister objecting to Aung Hlaing's visit. Heavy fighting has erupted in Chin State's Mindat Township as regime troops attempt to retake Mindat Town from resistance forces. On Saturday, regime troops torched houses in Tin Chaung village as they advanced toward Mindat Town, which is controlled by the Chinland Defense Force Mindat. Residents discovered the bodies of a 16-year-old boy and a 16-year-old man after the troops had left. The CDF Mindat imposed a curfew in the town and warned residents to build bunkers in preparation for regime airstrikes. A committee assisting internally displaced people claimed the fighting has displaced around 17,000 residents. The Yaw Army, which operates in neighboring Magway region's Saw Township, claimed it killed at least 80 regime soldiers and injured more than 100 in clashes between May 13th and June 1st. The group accused the regime of committing grave human rights abuses. Meanwhile, the regime-aligned Zomi Revolutionary Army announced that displaced residents can return to Tonzang Town, which it helped recapture last month. However, resistance sources say only a few residents with ties to the Zomi Revolutionary Army and regime civil servants have returned. Myanmar has lost a notable voice for human rights and environmental issues with the death of filmmaker Min Tin Koko Ji. The former political prisoner died of liver cancer in Yangon on Wednesday at the age of 64 or 65, according to different reports. His funeral was held in Yangon's Yewe Cemetery hours after his death. Min Tin Koko Ji trained as an engineer but began writing poetry and essays in the late 1990s before pivoting to filmmaking. His films often covered human rights and environmental issues, with some screened internationally. In 2005, he released the documentary Human Zoo, showing the lives of Kachin refugees who had settled along the Myanmar-Thailand border. The film was banned in Myanmar for depicting the junta's abuses that forced the Kachin to flee. His 2010 film, The Floating Tomatoes, examined how pesticides used in tomato farming polluted Inle Lake and disrupted the livelihoods of the Intha people. The movie won the Best Documentary Award at a film festival in Vietnam. Min Tin Koko Ji was arrested in April 2019 for criticizing the military-drafted 2008 Constitution on Facebook. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison with hard labor. He was arrested again during the February 2021 coup and sentenced to 2 years for sedition before being released in a mass amnesty in November 2022. After more than 10 years of award-winning journalism, we at Frontier are fighting for our survival. The grants that once supported 2/3 of our operations are no longer available. Despite this, our journalists continue their difficult and dangerous work, but with decreasing resources. Please encourage friends and colleagues to join Frontier so we can continue producing our trademark features, in-depth investigations, and on-the-ground reporting. By joining Frontier, you'll be supporting us to tell the stories that matter and cut through the noise to reveal what's really happening in Myanmar. Please click the link in the podcast show notes to join us. Thank you. Education has become another battleground in Myanmar's conflict, with both sides taking measures that impact children's access to schooling. The NUG-affiliated Palay People's Administration team has threatened to punish anyone who sends their children to regime schools in Sagaing Region's Palay Township. The PAT told people to send their children to NUG-run schools instead. The All Burma Federation of Student Unions criticized the ban. You cannot treat children who are attending military-run schools as enemies or label them as informants without evidence. We must not block their freedom to learn, said spokesperson Kin Ni. Meanwhile, the junta's education ministry reported that enrollment in its public schools climbed by about 300,000 compared to last year, including an increase of about 20,000 in war-torn Sagaing. However, many schools remain closed due to fighting. In Ayeyarwady Region's Le Myetna Township, 68 schools have been shut down by fighting between the military and resistance forces led by the Arakan Army, affecting around 3,000 children. A military convoy has arrived in the Kachin state capital Myitkyina, potentially signaling preparations for a counter-offensive against resistance forces. The convoy of around 200 vehicles arrived on Sunday, carrying what the Kachin Independence Army says were weapons and ammunition, despite the regime claiming it was transporting food, medicine, fuel, and other goods. The convoy departed from Mandalay on May 22nd and was ambushed by resistance forces led by the KIA near Namsi Ong village in Kachin's Monyin Township, though the attack did not cause significant damage. KIA spokesperson Colonel Nalbu told the Irrawaddy that regime troops are massing at the military's northern command in Myitkyina in preparation for a counteroffensive against the KIA. This military buildup follows the regime's recapture of towns along the Mandalay-Myitkyina highway, including Malu and Indal, by early May. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of the conflict in Myanmar's central dry zone, with reports of killings by regime forces in multiple townships. In Mandalay Region's Tangta Township, regime soldiers arrested 7 civilians at a checkpoint before killing 5 of them and taking the other 2 away, according to the NUG-affiliated Tangta PDF. Resistance groups warn that around 800 soldiers are raiding villages in the area and committing grave human rights violations. In Mandalay's Ngazun Township, a regime drone strike killed 7 residents and injured 4 others, including 2 children, on farmland near Datal village. Regime snipers also killed 2 women in nearby Kula village. In Magway Region's Pakoku Township, regime troops killed 9 civilians in Sweji village. Residents recovered their bodies following a raid by the military, although it's unclear when they were killed. In Magway's Myang Township, regime troops killed 3 members of the Pakoku District People's Defense Force during a raid on one of the resistance group's camps. A resident told Mandalay Free Press that the military raided the camp from an unexpected direction, despite the PDF deploying sentries in the area. The raid could be in retaliation for a resistance attack on regime troops in Myang last week. Regime troops had burned down 12 homes in 3 villages in the preceding 2 weeks, displacing thousands of residents. A regime drone strike on Monday destroyed a home in Myang's Let Yat Ma village. Resistance forces captured a stronghold of the junta-aligned Pusati militia in Myang's Thayet Kan village on May 23rd. That's the latest from Myanmar for this week. Nick Dunlop will be back next week to bring you a roundup of all the stories making the headlines on Friday, June 12th.